My best friend didn't just steal my boyfriend. She stole the house we bought to build a future. 20 years of trust gone. This is my story. Don't forget to subscribe and stay till the end. You won't believe what they did. Emma Brooks sat quietly in her familiar armchair in the corner of her small Brooklyn apartment, sipping a cup of warm tea. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the glass window, casting long shadows of the trees outside onto the floor, reminding her of a different afternoon, long ago, when a childhood friendship first took root. Emma met Lauren Fields on the first day of second grade. Lauren was a little girl with curly blonde hair, wearing an oversized purple hoodie and carrying a unicorn backpack. They were seated next to each other by the teacher's random arrangement. When Emma dropped her box of colored pencils, Lauren said nothing. She simply picked them up and smiled. From that moment, the two became inseparable, no explanation needed. Their childhood was filled with afternoons of riding bikes around the neighborhood, climbing trees, and weekend sleepovers under the covers telling ghost stories. Emma could read Lauren's thoughts with just a glance, and Lauren always sensed when Emma was upset, even without a word being spoken. That bond only grew stronger as the years passed. They went through middle school together, then high school, and eventually college in Portland. After graduation, both decided to move to New York City, the city of dreams. Emma got a job as a financial analyst at an investment firm, while Lauren became a communications manager for a rising fashion startup. They shared a two-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, split the rent, the groceries, and every deeply held secret. Then Jake Rivers came into Emma's life. He was a tall, confident tech professional with dark hair and a charming smile. They met at a New Year's party hosted by Lauren. Jake was instantly drawn to Emma, or so he said later. But winning over a reserved woman like her wasn't easy. Knowing that Lauren was Emma's closest friend, Jake cleverly started with her. Emma loves peonies, Lauren casually mentioned to Jake during coffee chat. She doesn't eat spicy food, loves Jane Austen novels, and always skips cream in her coffee. Jake took notes. On their first date, he brought peonies. He took her to her favorite coffee shop. He made her feel like they were perfectly in sync. Emma was intrigued, not just by his looks, but by the way he noticed the smallest things. He remembered when she had big presentations, called before interviews to wish her luck, and made her laugh with silly messages at just the right moments. Their love grew steadily. Jake became a vital part of Emma's life, and Lauren's too. The three of them became a trio: picnics, movie nights, weekend dinners. Lauren would joke about being the world's most charming third wheel. But no one saw anything wrong with that. Emma trusted Lauren as much as she trusted herself. It never crossed her mind that her best friend would ever hurt her. Even when Emma and Jake had small fights, over forgotten anniversaries or long work hours, Lauren was the peacemaker. Jake's just a guy. He doesn't pick up on the little things like you do, Lauren would say. But he obviously loves you. Emma believed her. She also believed in Lauren. Their relationship lasted 3 years. 3 warm, steady years, with arguments that always ended in apologies and tight hugs. Throughout those 3 years, Lauren didn't date anyone. When Emma asked why, Lauren shrugged and said, "I'm busy, or I haven't found the right guy yet." Emma never found it strange. Lauren had always been someone who knew what she wanted and never rushed into romance. Emma recalled Lauren saying things like, "Whoever marries Jake will be the luckiest woman alive. If I were dating him, I'd marry him in a heartbeat. He's so charming, calm, respectful. Guys like that are rare. You're lucky to have someone like him." Those words, looking back, now made Emma's chest tighten. But at the time, they just sounded like compliments from a supportive friend. Emma never read into it. She even felt grateful to have Lauren, the friend who always listened, always stood by her, and never let her down. Until that winter afternoon, Jake texted Emma and asked to meet at their regular cafe. No flowers, no smile. Just a weary face and the words, "I don't feel the same anymore." Emma couldn't believe it. "Is there someone else?" she asked. Jake shook his head. "No, it's just gone." She didn't cry in front of him. She just sat there, staring at her cooling cup of coffee. Later, she messaged Lauren. For the first time ever, Lauren didn't come over. She replied with a short, flat message. "It's okay. You'll find someone better." He's not the only guy out there. Words meant to comfort, but they felt distant. Foreign. Emma didn't think much of it. Maybe Lauren was busy. Maybe she just wanted Emma to move on. But something inside her stirred. A quiet ache. A faint sense of fracture. 20 years. That friendship had lasted 20 years. How could she ever doubt it? Emma had no idea that what she lost in love was nothing compared to what she was about to lose in friendship. The week after Jake broke up with her, Emma lived in a fog. She went to work, answered emails, attended meetings, but everything felt muted. She walked the same streets she had walked for 3 years with Jake by her side. But now, every corner felt like a memory begging to be erased. The coffee shop on 8th Avenue reminded her of their first kiss. The bookstore near the subway station still carried his favorite thriller series. Even her own apartment seemed to echo with his laughter. What hurt the most was not knowing why. Jake had been vague, too vague. "It's just not there anymore," he had said. That wasn't a reason. That was an escape hatch. Emma tried not to overthink it, but her mind didn't cooperate. She wondered if she had done something wrong, or if she had become too predictable, too careful, too boring. Lauren, usually the first person to come running with chocolate, tissues, and a rom-com playlist, had stayed oddly distant. She sent short texts. "How are you holding up? Want to hang soon?" But there were no visits, no long phone calls. Emma figured maybe Lauren was giving her space. But even then, something didn't feel right. Something had shifted. One night, lying awake at 2 a.m., Emma scrolled through her photo gallery. There were hundreds of pictures. Her and Jake smiling at Central Park. Her and Lauren at karaoke, all 3 of them at a rooftop barbecue. She paused at one photo taken just a few months earlier. It was Jake and Lauren laughing together. She remembered taking the picture herself, thinking how well they got along. But now, her eyes caught something she hadn't noticed before. Jake's hand was just a little too close to Lauren's waist. Lauren's smile just a little too wide, her eyes not on the camera, but on Jake. Was that something? Or was she imagining it? She shook her head. "Don't be paranoid," she muttered to herself. "They're friends. That's all." But memories started to resurface, little fragments she had brushed aside before. The time Lauren said, "Jake is such a gentleman. Whoever ends up with him will be lucky." Or the night they'd all watched a movie, and Jake had made a sarcastic comment. Emma had rolled her eyes, but Lauren had laughed a bit too hard, playfully shoving his arm and saying, "You're hilarious." Emma had felt a twinge then, a flicker of discomfort, but she had buried it, because she trusted them. Now, all those flickers were starting to form a flame. Emma started noticing patterns she had ignored. Lauren never brought up guys she liked, never mentioned dating apps, never showed screenshots of flirty messages like she used to in college. She had always been the type to crush hard, fall fast, but not in the last 3 years. And yet, Lauren was always there, helping Emma plan Jake's birthday surprises, advising her on what to wear for their anniversary dinner, coaching her on what to say when Jake seemed distant. Always invested, always involved. Too involved? Emma hated herself for even thinking it. But the distance between them had grown impossible to ignore. They used to text nonstop. Now Lauren took hours to reply. When they finally met for brunch 2 weeks after the breakup, the conversation fell off. "So you okay?" Lauren asked, stirring her coffee without looking up. Emma hesitated, trying to be, still confused, honestly. Lauren nodded. "Jake's complicated." "Yeah." Emma looked at her. "Did he talk to you before we broke up?" Lauren blinked. "What do you mean? Did he mention anything? Like, that he wasn't feeling it anymore?" "No," Lauren said quickly. "Why would he? I don't know. You two were close. Sometimes I felt like you understood him better than I did." Lauren laughed, but there was no humor in it. Don't you be viewed. You're the one he dated, not me." Emma looked away, embarrassed. "Sorry, that came out wrong." Lauren reached over and squeezed her hand. "It's okay. You're hurting. I get it." But the warmth in that gesture felt performative, like someone mimicking concern. Later that night, Emma found herself scrolling through Jake's social media. He hadn't posted anything new, but Lauren had liked his latest photo, a picture of a sunset, captioned, "New Beginnings." Her heart dropped. It was a subtle sign, but it screamed at her. She didn't sleep that night. The real unraveling came 5 days later. Nyma was at work, in between meetings, when she received a message from an old college friend, Melissa. "Hey, not sure if you saw Lauren's story. Is that Jake with her?" Emma's heart slammed into her chest. Her hands shook as she opened Instagram and tapped into Lauren's story. There it was, a video of Lauren at a rooftop bar, clinking glasses with someone just off camera. Then, she turned the camera, and for a split second, Jake's face appeared, smiling. Smiling like nothing had ever happened. Nyma froze. She felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. No, 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 no. She watched it again, and again. She clicked on Jake's profile. He had posted a photo of Lauren's hand, holding a wine glass. A silver bracelet Nyma had gifted her years ago, still on her wrist. Caption: "Some people understand you without a single word." Emma's vision blurred. Her fingers trembled as she messaged Lauren. "Is it true? You and Jake?" The reply came 10 minutes later. "Yeah, I wasn't going to hide it. We didn't plan it. It just happened." Nyma stared at the screen. "How long?" No reply for a while. "Then, after you two broke up." "Not before. I swear." Emma's chest heaved. She wanted to scream. She wanted to believe her. But more than anything, she wanted to turn back time, to when everything still made sense. She wrote, "You knew everything about me, every part of that relationship, and now you're with him." Lauren's reply was cold, almost smug. "I didn't do anything wrong. You and he were over. He didn't cheat. I didn't cheat. We're both single. There's no law saying I can't fall for your ex. You should support me. I supported you." And then, the last message. "That's just who I am. Take it or leave it." Nyma dropped the phone. Her heart was broken, but not by Jake. It was Lauren. Lauren, the girl who had shared her crayons in 2nd grade, who had held her hand through high school breakups, who had helped her pick a dress for her first date with Jake. Lauren, the one person Nyma thought would never be the villain in her story. She had been so blind. She had trusted too much. And now, she had lost too much. Nyma didn't go into work the next day. She called in sick, but the truth was more complicated than a sore throat or a fever. She sat on her bed, knees drawn to her chest, wrapped in a blanket that once smelled like lavender, but now only offered a strange kind of emptiness. Her phone buzzed every now and then, friends asking if she was okay, colleagues checking in, but she ignored all of it. She felt hollow. A gaping space had opened inside her, the kind that wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Like something inside had been ripped out without warning, leaving behind only silence. The betrayal hadn't come from a stranger, not from a casual friend or a passing fling. It had come from her best friend, Lauren. Nyma couldn't stop replaying their 20 years of friendship like a movie in reverse. From the silly moments of childhood to the secrets they'd shared as teenagers, the nights in college when they cried over crushes, the dreams whispered under fairy lights in their dorm. The trust they had built brick by brick, year after year. And now gone. Just like that. Jake was gone too. But oddly, that didn't feel as sharp. His exit had been disappointing, yes. Confusing, painful. But not like this. With him, it had been a breakup. With Lauren, it was a betrayal. There was a difference. 3 days later, she finally replied to Lauren. "You didn't just take him. You took the one person I would have turned to after losing him. That's what hurts." Lauren didn't respond. Nyma stared at the screen for an hour, hoping, praying for a message, an apology, a breakdown, something, but nothing came. That night, Nyma opened a drawer she hadn't touched in months, the one filled with old letters, friendship bracelets, photo booth strips from summer camps, the shoebox full of Polaroids they took during their senior year road trip. There was a note folded inside, a worn birthday card from Lauren, written when they were 14. "No matter what, I'll always have your back. Even if we get married and live on different continents, you'll still be my soulmate. Sister over Mr., remember?" Nyma laughed, bitterly. Sister over Mr., huh? She put the card down. Not angrily, not tearfully, just quietly. A few days later, Nyma saw them. It wasn't planned. She was walking through Union Square on a Sunday morning, grabbing groceries from the farmer's market. And there they were, Jake and Lauren, holding hands, laughing, wearing matching sneakers. The world didn't blur. The air didn't freeze. There was no dramatic background music like in the movies. Just real-life horror unfolding in daylight, casually, almost cruelly in its normalcy. Emma stopped in her tracks. Jake saw her first. His expression tightened. He let go of Lauren's hand almost instantly. Lauren turned next. For a split second, her eyes widened. Then, just like that, she adjusted her sunglasses and offered a half smile. "Hey," she said, like it was any other Sunday. Emma didn't move. Her hands clenched into fists, the paper bag of vegetables rustling awkwardly. Jake took a step forward. "Emma, I didn't know." "Don't," she cut in. "Don't say anything." He stopped. She looked at Lauren. "Was this worth it to you?" Lauren blinked. "What do you mean?" "You knew everything," Emma said, her voice low but sharp. "You knew when he hurt me. You knew when I cried over him. You were there for every single moment of our relationship. And now you're with him." Lauren crossed her arms. "You broke up." Emma laughed, bitter. "No, Jake broke up with me 2 months ago. And now I know why." Jake opened his mouth to speak, but Emma raised her hand. "No, I don't want to hear excuses." Lauren stepped closer. "Emma, we didn't plan this. It just happened. After the breakup. You really expect me to believe that?" Emma asked, her voice trembling now. "You think I don't remember the way you talked about him? The way you looked at him when you thought I wasn't paying attention?" Jake looked away. Emma swallowed hard, suddenly exhausted. "You didn't just date an ex, Lauren. You broke us." Lauren's face stiffened. "I'm not going to apologize for falling in love." Emma nodded slowly. "Then I'm not going to apologize for walking away." And with that, she turned, left them standing there, the weight of 20 years trailing behind her like a broken kite. That night, Emma deleted every photo with Lauren and Jake from her phone. She unfollowed them, blocked their numbers. She lit a candle and let herself cry. Really cry. For the first time since everything happened. Not for Jake, but for Lauren. For the girl who once pinky swore they'd be bridesmaids at each other's weddings. For the friend who stayed up with her all night during her parents' divorce. For the one who knew every chapter of her life and chose to write herself into the most painful one. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the rewriting of history. The realization that maybe, just maybe, Lauren had been waiting for the moment Emma's relationship would fall apart. That maybe she had never been entirely selfless. Emma didn't want to believe that. But the silence, the lack of remorse, spoke volumes. The next day, Emma opened a blank notebook. On the first page, she wrote, "This is the year I rebuild." And then underneath, Chapter 1, "Not everyone you love is meant to stay." She didn't know what healing would look like, but she knew it had to start now. She closed the notebook, took a deep breath, and stepped into the quiet morning sun. Emma had always believed that when people hurt you, at least there would be a limit, some line they wouldn't cross. She was wrong. 2 weeks after the confrontation in Union Square, Emma received an email that made her blood run cold. Subject, title update on joint property, 221B, Haven Street. From Lawson and Green Legal Associates. Emma stared at the subject line for a long minute before clicking it open. As her eyes skimmed over the contents, a cold sweat broke across her skin. As of this notice, we are confirming the transfer of full ownership rights of the property located at 221B, Haven Street to Mr. Jake Rivers, per the agreement signed by both parties, dated January 12th. What agreement? She had never signed anything. Emma frantically dug through her email folders, her filing cabinets, every physical copy she could find. The last she remembered, the house was still jointly owned. A modest 2-story brownstone in Queens, close to the park, where she and Jake had planned to move in after their wedding. They had chosen everything together. The cabinets, the lighting, even the silly welcome mat that read, "Home is wherever I'm with you." After the breakup, she hadn't thought about the house much. She figured they'd talk about it later. She had moved out, thinking time would settle things. But now, he had transferred it to himself. Completely. She called the number listed in the email. A paralegal picked up. "Hi, I'm Emma Brooks. I just received an email about a property title transfer. There must be a mistake. I never signed anything." A pause. Then paper shuffling on the other end. "Yes, Ms. Brooks, according to our records, your signature was received electronically via DocuSign on January 12th at 3:42 p.m. Emma blinked. "That's impossible." I didn't sign anything. Ma'am, the digital certificate matches your registered email and IP address. I don't care about certificates, she snapped. I didn't sign anything. Someone forged it. The voice on the line hesitated. If you believe fraud has occurred, you may wish to contact legal counsel to contest. Emma hung up. She felt like screaming, like breaking something. But instead, she called Jake. No answer. She called again, straight to voicemail. She tried Lauren. Just once. It rang. Then clicked. Lauren's voice was calm. Hey, did you forge my signature? A beat of silence. Then, Emma, you're being dramatic. Answer me. Lauren sighed. Jake said you didn't want the house. You left everything. You never reached out about it. He handled it because someone had to. Emma was shaking. That was my house too. You were the one who walked away. I walked away from you. From him. Not for what I helped build. It's not like we sold it or anything, Lauren said defensively. We're living in it. Together. The words hit like a punch. We're living in it. Emma couldn't breathe. Lauren continued, a little too casually. You'd moved on anyway. You've got your new apartment, your new job. What's the point in clinging to the past? Emma's voice dropped. You didn't just take him. You took the future I built. Lauren said nothing. Emma added, quietly, you both betrayed me, and then you stole from me. Then she ended the call. The next few days blurred into each other. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Her chest ached in places she didn't know could hurt. She was angry, but more than that, she was humiliated, violated. Everything she had believed in, love, friendship, decency, had been spat on. For days, she debated contacting a lawyer, but just the thought of legal battles with them made her stomach churn. She wasn't ready to see their faces again in courtrooms. She wasn't ready for the stories they'd spin. Instead, she went back to that house. She needed to see it one more time. It was a gray Sunday morning. Drizzly. Quiet. Emma stood across the street from 221B, Haven Street. Umbrella clenched in her hand. The house looked lived in. Warm lights glowed behind the curtains. A new potted plant sat on the porch. The door had been painted navy blue. Jake always said he hated that color. Lauren must have picked it. And there, through the window, she saw them. Jake and Lauren, sitting on the couch, laughing at something on a tablet. He touched her shoulder. She leaned into him. Her stomach twisted. That should have been mine. The thought came uninvited. But it was true. That was the future she had pictured for years. That couch, that window, that man, that life. All gone. All handed over. She turned and walked away. She didn't cry. Not because she wasn't hurting, but because something deeper than tears had taken root. Resolve. That night, Emma sat at her kitchen table, opened her laptop, typed, I, Emma Brooks, acknowledge that the people you love the most can also become the ones who teach you the most painful truths. This is not a story of heartbreak. This is a story of theft, of how love, when mixed with ego and betrayal, can rot everything you believed in. But I survived it. I'm writing this because I have to believe the healing begins here. She didn't finish it all in one night, but it was a start. The following week, Emma visited a lawyer. She showed the email, the digital signature, her proof of absence that day. The lawyer was calm, direct. It may take time, but if that signature was forged, you have a case. Emma nodded. I'm not doing it for revenge. I'm doing it because I refuse to let them think they can erase me. The lawyer smiled. Then let's make sure they don't. The first time Emma walked into a courtroom, her hands were cold. Not because of fear, but because of how surreal it felt to be standing there. Not as a spectator, not as someone mourning a breakup, but as a woman demanding justice. She didn't wear black to look dramatic. She wore deep navy, sharp cut, and simple. A statement not of grief, but of clarity. She wasn't there to cry or rage. She was there to reclaim. Her attorney laid out the evidence clearly. Emma had never signed any document authorizing the property transfer. IP logs indicated inconsistencies. The notary was suspiciously linked to Lauren's cousin. The email trail was flimsy at best. And perhaps most telling, Lauren had used Emma's personal laptop briefly in early January, around the exact time of the forged e-signature. Jake didn't show up in court. Lauren did. She sat stiffly across the room, her once playful smile now replaced by a tight, unreadable mask. She didn't look at Emma. Emma didn't look at her either. The silence between them was louder than any gavel. The proceedings didn't take long. The judge wasn't emotional, but the ruling was clear. The transfer was invalid. Ownership would revert to joint status until further negotiations or buyout agreements. Emma didn't cheer. She didn't smirk. She simply nodded, thanked her lawyer, and walked out into the cold morning air. She had her name back, on the deed, and in her own story. That evening, she sat in the quiet of her apartment, candlelight flickering gently against the walls. A warm cup of tea in her hand. A single suitcase lay open on her bed, not for running away, but for something better. She was moving, not out of fear or sadness, but by choice. She had found a small studio uptown. It had old wooden floors, dusty bookshelves, and a rooftop view of the river. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't the life she once dreamed with Jake. It was hers. A few weeks later, Emma received a handwritten letter in the mail. From Lauren. Emma, you don't have to forgive me. I wouldn't if I were you. I told myself a lot of things to justify what I did. That you'd moved on. That Jake and I just happened. That we didn't owe you anything once it was over. But deep down, I knew the truth. I knew I was betraying someone who trusted me with everything. I see you won. And honestly, I think you always will, in ways I never could. Lauren. Emma folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just felt done. It was the kind of closure that didn't need a reply. One Sunday morning in April, Emma wandered into a small bookstore cafe on the west side. She started going there on weekends, reading, journaling, occasionally chatting with the owner, a retired English professor who loved to recommend poetry. That morning, a new face was at the register. He had slightly messy brown hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a kind, unassuming smile. He looked more like a writer than a barista. She ordered her usual, chamomile tea, splash of honey. As he handed her the cup, he said, "Chamomile? Huh? That's the tea for people who are finally tired of chaos." She laughed. "That's accurate. I'm Daniel," he said. "Emma." They didn't fall in love right away. They didn't even exchange numbers that day. But the next week, when she returned, he remembered her name. The week after that, he set aside her favorite poetry book, Rainer Maria Rilke, Letters to a Young Poet. Then, one Saturday, he asked if she wanted to walk along the river after the shop closed. They talked about everything except the past. And for the first time, Emma didn't feel the need to bring it up. She didn't want to be defined by betrayal or pain. She wanted to be known for who she was becoming. Months passed. On the day the house was finally sold, Emma signed the closing papers without emotion. Jake had requested a quiet exit from the joint ownership. She agreed. No confrontation, no final words, just a wire transfer and a goodbye in ink. She took her share and invested it into something else. A travel writing program she had been too afraid to pursue years ago. A one-way ticket to Ireland. A new journal with the words, "Be Your Own Story," embossed on the cover. Before leaving, she stopped by Union Square one last time. Not to see anyone, just to breathe. The park bench where she and Jake used to sit was still there. The fountain still bubbled. Spring was in bloom. She pulled out her notebook and wrote, "I lost the person I loved. I lost the friend I trusted. And for a while, I thought I lost myself too. But what I found was far more important. I found out that endings are not always ruins. Sometimes they are renovations." She smiled to herself. This was her goodbye, not just to Jake or Lauren, but to the girl who once thought loyalty meant silence. To the girl who believed love was about enduring anything, even betrayal. To the girl who forgot her own voice. Emma stood, closed her notebook, and walked toward her future. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't looking back.